Good morning, good evening. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. Oh, geez, look at me. I'm a mess here. It's a tough day, guys. I'll tell you. It was loud last night in Kyiv. I didn't get any sleep. Nobody got any sleep. That is the Russian way, right? They hit us on Sunday night so that everybody is exhausted all week. I swear to God, that is what they do. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Tuesday. Believe it or not, it's Tuesday for me already, January 28th, 2025, which makes this the news for Monday, January 27th, day 1069 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and I want to wish a happy belated birthday to President Zelensky, who celebrated his birthday on Saturday. And I also want to remind everybody that today is the 80th Remembrance Day of what is commonly called the Holocaust, but I prefer to use the term Shoah, which is the term that is used by the Israelis and the Jewish people. So, having said that, the peeps are coming in. Hey, Nicola, how you doing? Hey, Anthony. Hey, Fitz. Shoot. Hold on a second. 1 second, just before we get to the news here. I forgot to... Oh, it's Fitz. I'm sorry. No, I remember. It's Fitz. Fitz is the sponsor tonight. Hey, Bjorn. Good job commandeering that vessel. We'll talk about that tonight. But Fitz is the sponsor of tonight's live. So everybody thank Fitz because literally I could not do this without the sponsors and without the Patreon folks. And so if you are a member of the Patreon, I appreciate you. Especially like even the free members, right? Like don't hesitate. If you can't kick me $5 a month, I get it. But join the Patreon for free because we don't know what's going to happen with TikTok. That's right, Pugga Mahone. Thanks to Fitz. Medley, please. Please. My heart, when I see what's happening to Native Americans, my heart is broken. Like, haven't we done enough to these people? You don't blush. Nobody believes that for a second. All right, so last night, like I said, last night was a tough night here. It was very loud. And there were only 6 drones, but there was a lot of gunfire. Only 6 got through, I should say. There were 104 sent. And of that 104, 57 were shot down, 39 were taken out with the active countermeasures. I said 6, I apologize. 8 actually got through defenses last night. 8. Still, that's a 92% interception rate. No one can fault the Ukrainian armed forces on their professionalism, their accuracy, and their consistent, excellent performance. Hits were recorded in Dnipropetrovsk. Ooh, I have trouble with that. Sumy, Ivano-Frankivsk, and here in Kyiv. Like I said, it was a long night last night. All right, so no, I do not think that Russia is going to win the war. Medley, I couldn't agree more. Hey, Steve with a V. On the subject of dictators who get what they want, Medley, right? Lukashenko, our buddy Uncle Luka in Belarus, won the election yesterday. Imagine your surprise. Everybody's shocked and amazed, I know. Now, he won. Now, get this. He won with 86% of the vote, 86.3% of the vote. What did Putin get in his sham election? He got 87%. So Uncle Luka didn't want to show up his boy Putin, right? Hey, Bjorn, did you just join the Patreon? I just got a thing flash up there. So Luka didn't want to show up Putin, and so he made sure he won by only 86.3%. The funniest thing had to be him going in to give his big acceptance speech. His dog pisses right on the wall. Swear to God, you can't even make that up. Now, this is his 7th term in office. You want to talk about a dictator, right? A president for life. He is this guy. Did you see that video, Richard? It was a riot, right? What is wrong with this guy that he doesn't have a dog that's house trained? Can you imagine that thing pissing all over your house all the time? Ugh. That's how these bastards are. They don't give a fuck. Further, he threatened Ukraine with Oreshniks. Now, what does this mean? According to him, Russia is about to send Oreshnik missiles to Belarus, and he's going to put them right on the border. Right, Jasser? Exactly. It's disgusting. It's obscene. Now look, hey Arn. Now look, these are Oreshnik missiles. To the best of my knowledge, according to Lieutenant General Budanov of the Ukraine's Military Intelligence Directorate, Russia maybe has 10 of them, 10 prototypes. They cost $120 million apiece. They hit Dnipropetrovsk, or the city of Dnipro, rather, with one. And it did very little damage, considering that it's a $120 million missile. Why did it do so little damage? Because it's not a new thing. It's a retrofitted, I want to say RU-76, something like that, intercontinental ballistic missile, right? It's retrofitted. So it's got a shorter range, but it doesn't carry a nuclear warhead. Now, if you're building a missile that carries a nuclear warhead, you don't have to be very precise about the targeting, right? You get it in the city that you want to hit, there's no more city. It's that simple. But if you're using no explosives at all, which we'll talk about in 1 second, or conventional explosives, you've got to be precise. These Oreshnik missiles are a mythology. They're bullshit. And I'll tell you why. What you got is a warhead that separates. So you've got 6 warheads in there. Each of those 6 warheads separates into 6 multiple re-entry vehicles. What Putin is counting on is the fact that the re-entry vehicle, and we call them re-entry vehicles because they're ballistic, right? They go all the way up to the edge of space, and then they come back down to Earth. That's a ballistic trajectory. Those re-entry vehicles come back in at like Mach 11 was recorded on the hit in Dnipro. At Mach 11, a big chunk of metal just vaporizes everything that hits it. Ha ha ha, Dr. K is here. I just called Dr. K a stalker. You stalking me, Doc? Thanks for the rose, big spender. You know, that's a 0.1%. That's 0.1 pennies. It's a tenth of a penny every rose, Doc. Yeah. Don't tell your husband and the kids. Good to see you, Doc. Welcome aboard. You want to hop on? You want to say anything to the folks? I don't usually invite people into the box, but you can have the floor if you'd like. Good enough. So anyway, these are Oreshniks, right? What Putin's counting on is that these warheads that don't have any munitions in them, it's just a big chunk of metal, coming in at Mach 11 is going to vaporize everything it hits, which they do. But that's all they do. So it'll put a hole in your building, but it won't blow the building up. And that's what we saw in Dnipro. It's a failure. So they have a payload problem. If it's not going to be nuclear armed, they got to figure out how to put conventional munitions in there. But here's the problem with that. It's going at Mach 11. Your fuse has to go off at exactly the right time so that it blows up in exactly the right place. If it goes off too early, it detonates 100 feet in the air. If it goes off too late, it detonates when the thing's already buried in the ground. It can't be done. Right, there you go. That's a new name to me, pal. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with it. Sorcerer 8 is saying the same thing I'm saying, right? And look, it's not that I'm a rocket scientist. I am not, I assure you. But I've been listening to a bunch of rocket scientists talk about this and all the problems that there are with it. And it's a mythology. It's the boogeyman. He's got to stop making nuclear threats, and he knows it because everybody's getting, thanks, Jay, because everybody's getting on edge with the nukes, right? And so he knows he's got to stop making these nuclear threats. And so now he's threatening the Oreshniks is what he's doing. And they don't even exist. It's a myth. It's a boogeyman. Again, according to Budanov, they maybe have 10 of them. So now Lukashenko is repeating this same lie about the threat of the Oreshniks, or making the same threat. In Hungary, I'm sorry, one other thing about Lukashenko's little speech after his election. He did a Yahtzee salute for everybody when he was talking about Musk. These people aren't even pretending to hide who they are anymore. It's all out there. In Hungary, another one of these guys, our buddy Viktor Orban, did not veto an extension to the sanctions against Russia. That's a good hit. That's a good hit. That's a win for everybody. Now, of course, it cost the Europeans something. He did veto the resolution to declare Lukashenko's victory illegitimate and Lukashenko illegitimate. So by the EU not officially stating that Lukashenko is illegitimate, one could say that there is the appearance that they consider him legitimate and someone to deal with. Abby Normal, they do not care. They do not care. Please, let Putin start an arms race. That's how we bankrupted the Soviet Union in the first place. It'll only go faster this time. Mattis, you just missed it. You'll have to listen to the recording. I just talked for 7 minutes about the Oreshnik. Okay, so he didn't block the extension of sanctions, but he did block the statement on Lukashenko. He also is pressuring the EU, or he's pushing the EU rather, to pressure Ukraine to restore the transit of natural gas from Russia and to ensure that the oil transiting through Ukraine continues. There's still pipelines that are up and running, right? Turning to our third and last domino to fall, or domino that we're watching. You got Hungary with Viktor Orban, you got Belarus with Lukashenko, and then in Slovakia, you've got Fico. And in Fico's case, in Slovakia, there's been massive protests against him. Not only did 150 Slovakian psychiatrists sign a letter saying that he's not fit to serve, the people are out in the street. They're fed up with the incompetence. Every other country that was affected by the gas pipeline closure made arrangements. They solved the problem in advance, like a responsible leadership does. Not the guys who bow and preen and kiss Putin's ass. The bootlickers all let it go and then victim blamed Ukraine for turning off the gas, as if Ukraine is going to keep putting billions of dollars into the pockets of their aggressor. Insanity to believe that or even ask them to. So the Slovakian In Slovakia, there are massive protests, and I'm thinking of going. There is a critical vote coming up that might overturn FISO and call for snap elections. Or maybe if snap elections are called, maybe I'll go there for the elections. It's only 24 hours on the train, and it's nearby. I think it's probably worth it. FISO, for his part, is claiming that the demonstrations are all incited by the Ukrainians and that a third of the people in the crowd are Ukrainians. There are not that many Ukrainians in Slovakia, guys. Not 32,000 to show up in the capital of Bratislava. Bratislava is the capital of Slovakia. Tough love, coach. Nice name. Now, there is a lot of confusion around the executive order that stopped all USAID foreign aid assistance for 90 days for it to be under review. There are people saying that cuts off all military aid to Ukraine. I want to assure you that according to both the new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and Andrei Kovalenko from the Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation, they both assure us that military aid to Ukraine in the pipeline is unaffected by that executive order. It is not so clear, hey, Popcornus, it is not so clear about the humanitarian aid. Under the terms of that executive order, it appears that the only humanitarian aid that is exempted is food aid to Israel and to Egypt. That's it. That would make one think that all humanitarian aid to Ukraine is stopped, and it appears that it is. Now what does that mean? It means a lot. It's a very destabilizing event for the Ukrainians. You know, the United States humanitarian aid funds firemen salaries, police salaries, other government workers' salaries. It funds food resources and takes care of orphaned children. This is a concern. This is a real concern, this executive order. Boy, Ukraine did not let up over the weekend, did they? No, they did not. They double tapped the Ryazan oil refinery. Now, the Rosneft Ryazan oil refinery in Voronezh is the third largest oil refinery in all of Russia. There's 22 operational, there were 22 operational oil refineries. Of the 22, 19 have been hit. 19 have been hit. Now, of course, they repair the damage and they get back up and running, right? So there's been a total of 31 hits against oil refineries. 19 of the 22 refineries have been hit at some point or another. After Ryazan got hit, and it appears that because of that, it is now shut down at least temporarily, you're talking about an estimated 15 to 22% reduction in capacity. 15%. 15%. You can't refine 15% of the energy that you usually do to run your country and your war. It's going to be a problem, especially when Ukraine keeps blowing up the depots. And Ukraine to date, with varying levels of success, has hit 36 oil depots. 36. These numbers do not bode well. Now, over the weekend, just finish up the oil depots and Ryazan. Ryazan processes 17 million tons, or over 130 million barrels of oil a year. We don't know. If you look at a map of the facility, the hit on Wednesday targeted oil tanks, and 3 oil tanks burned. That fire spread to the workshop that housed the hydro treatment unit for the facility. The hydro treatment unit is a critical step in the manufacturing process of diesel and aviation fuel. Without that unit, that facility can produce neither of those refined oil products. That's going to be a problem because that refinery is responsible for producing 7% of those products for the whole country. 7%. So right there, that's a large chunk of the reduced capacity. Now, the second hit over the weekend hit a different part of the facility where there are some small storage tanks, not sure what's in them, probably some refined product, and some units, some workshops that we don't yet know what units or what equipment was in there. So we can't say how critical the hit was, nor can we say what was hit, just where in the facility it happened. And I have a video on that if anybody's interested. I show the satellite image of the warehouse or of the plant and what was hit. Now, again, Ukrainians did not let up this weekend. In Oriel, they hit a reinforced warehouse, right? One of these ammunition dumps that has concrete reinforced bunkers so that, God forbid, the shit in one of the bunkers blows up, it doesn't go to the next bunker or the next one, right? So this is reinforced. Now, what they use to penetrate these reinforced concrete bunkers is unclear. Likely, it was the Peklo missile, right? They've built a new hybrid drone missile called the Peklo, and that appears to be designed for penetration of these kinds of concrete bunkers. Had it been an air attack, we would have thought that it was, Storm Shadows or unitary warhead ATACMS. That does not seem to be the case. It appears to be homegrown drones from the Ukrainians. In Oriel, those reinforced bunkers are said to have held thermobaric warheads, which are particularly nasty pieces of work. They spray an aerosol spray before they explode, which basically lights the air on fire and sucks all the oxygen out, so that if you're in the vicinity of the explosion, you can't breathe, you suffocate to death, and you have all these other internal injuries. So thermobaric warheads plus 200 Shaheds, a warehouse filled with 200 Shaheds. Good hit. Bloomberg is reporting that Mark Rutte, the NATO secretary and former prime minister of the Netherlands, NATO is sharing classified recommendations for weapons with the EU to boost defense coordination between the two groups. This should result in standardizations of military terms, weapons calibers, and common rules for missile, shared use, and communication systems. EU diplomatic chief Kallis, speaking at the annual European Defense Agency conference on January 23rd, underscored Rutte's earlier comments regarding European defense posture and the need to prepare for future conflict with Russia, saying, and I quote, "For too long, we have offered Russia alternatives, hoping that it would choose cooperation or economic prosperity for its people over fraudulent imperial ambitions. Instead, Russia's defense industry is turning out tanks, glide bombs, and artillery shells in vast quantities, and Europe must prepare to defend itself in the next 3 to 5 years from Russian aggression." Hey, truthful. North Koreans in Kursk. There's a bunch going on in Kursk, and I've been meaning to make some short form videos about this. But let's talk about a couple of things. There was apparently a situation in which a number of North Koreans were trapped by the Ukrainians. Rather than surrender, they all grabbed a grenade, pulled the pin, and shoved it between their flak jacket and themselves, as they are trained to do. And that, I can't understand that. I don't understand that, but that is what happened. We got video of 150 Koksan self-propelled guns en route to the front, as well as covert MLRS systems in Kursk already. And we got word from the Pentagon and South Korean intelligence that North Korea is getting ready to send another 12,000 troops to Kursk. Now, these troops are not going to be infantry, reportedly. They will be specialists in artillery and rockets. So I assume that these are gunners who will be running those Koksans and rocket specialists that'll be running the multi-launch rocket systems. That appears to be what's happening. And they should arrive in country within 60 days. Further, video has emerged of the Ukrainians springing a trap on the Russians. And apparently this is quite common. The Ukrainians withdrew, the Ukrainians came under fire. They withdrew from their positions in an orderly fashion and then called in cluster munitions HIMARS strikes. Now, these cluster munitions HIMARS strikes knew exactly where they were going before they called it in, because they intentionally abandoned the positions and let the Russians have it so that the HIMARS strike could just come in and eliminate them. There were no survivors. There were no survivors. Musk, on the subject of Yahtzee salutes and jerk-offs, spoke at the German AfD party's rally in, I think it was in Berlin. If I'm not mistaken, it was in Berlin. It was in Germany, definitely. And this came just before he got told that he's not getting an office in the White House. I was so happy about this. The idea of him having an office in the White House was absolutely obscene to me. And it appears that Donald Trump feels the same way, because his chief of staff said Musk is not getting an office. And I don't think the chief of staff could do that in a Trump administration without Trump saying it's okay. Videos of, in Kursk again, sorry, I forgot this one. Videos of Russians stuck in barbed wire have emerged. Now, we've seen both sides deploy barbed wire in Kursk. It's not clear to me whose barbed wire they got stuck in. But apparently they got stuck in this barbed wire, and then the Ukrainians just finished them all off with FPV drones. There were no survivors. Crude but effective. Yesterday, Russia suffered, according to the Ukrainian MOD, 1,430 lost. I want to point out that means that in the month of January, the Russians have suffered over 40,000 casualties as of Sunday. With 5 days left, right? 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Yeah, 5 days left. It is now the fourth worst month for casualty losses on record. At this rate, if you average 1,500 a day with 5 days left, that's 7,500. Am I doing that math right? Somebody check that math. That would make this one of, if not the worst month for the Russians since the start of this war. bringing the casualty figure in just under 50,000 for the month. It's insanity. How long can you keep this up? How long can they, even with the North Korean, they only got 11,000 North Koreans in the first round, maybe 12. So how long can they possibly keep it up? Swedish authorities have taken a lesson from their Finnish neighbors. And when another undersea Baltic cable was cut, this time between Latvia and Sweden, the Swedish Navy got out there and commandeered the ship. So the Vorzen, which is a multi-country flagged ship, is currently docked in Sweden and is being investigated as to whether or not it had anything to do with the severing of this cable. In response, are you ready for this? No, seriously, hold your hats. Just hang on to your hats for a second, because the irony, the hypocrisy, the lack of self-awareness, the lack of shame that the Russians are capable of is just mind-boggling to me. Because the Russians today accused NATO of abuse in the Baltic Sea. I mean, come on. You got it. I just broke your, my son's baseball just went through your window purely accidentally. He certainly didn't do it on purpose. How dare you yell at him? Give me a fucking break. The kid took a baseball bat to my front window. You gotta be kidding me. Every accusation is an admission. You are not kidding, pal. Now, this is very exciting, I think. It's really very interesting, very exciting, potentially. We have to wait and see. What we do know is that Herzog, he's an ambassador from Israel to Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken, and his counterpart from Ukraine met recently at Davos, at the Economic Summit at Davos. They were talking about their shared problems with Iran and with a Russia-backed Iran and with Russia. And they came to an agreement, it appears, nothing's been said publicly yet, that all of the Russian and Soviet captured equipment from Hezbollah would come to Ukraine. Late last week and over the weekend, 2 C-130s departed Ramstein Air Force Base for Israel. They then flew directly from Israel to Poland, which is where all of the military aid for Ukraine runs through, right? We believe that what was on those planes was a lot of that captured equipment, and that it's en route to Ukraine now. That's what we believe. What nobody is really saying, but a few analysts are whispering, is that it's possible that the Patriots that Israel retired from for its own use are on those planes and headed to Ukraine. Now, if this is true, if there are more Patriots on the way, that would be about the best news we've had here. Because the big problem that Ukraine has is air defense. It just doesn't have enough air defense. And so because the Russians know where the Patriots are, they send the missiles to other places, and the missiles get through. And that's been a problem, right? That's cost a lot of Ukrainian lives. If we could get some extra Patriots here, that could really mean the difference to Ukraine. So keep your fingers crossed that they're keeping it a secret and they're on their way. Now, again, I want to thank Fitz, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I have no other sponsors this week. If anybody wants to sponsor a live, Check out the Patreon. Patreon is in the description. For everybody else, I want to thank the moderators, best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Lars for the Discord server and the Alexievich archive, and of course, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. So thank you all. Now, the floor is open to questions, comments, points of observation. Anything from anybody? Hope they make some more Gravehawks. I'm with you, Mel. That'd be nice. Questions, comments, anything from anybody? So, Zuli, I'm not sure I understand your question. You hear about plane strikes. Are these hits reflected in combat loss totals reported? I mean, to the best of everybody's ability, everybody reports every loss that they can. So it doesn't matter whether you're hit by a glide bomb from an Su-35 or you're hit by a drone-dropped grenade. You get reported, yes. I would say yes if I understand the question correctly. UK is not buying Greenland, but UK can stop the United States from buying Greenland, right? The thing is, Greenland's not for sale. Like, it's so stupid. What he is talking about, the things that he is saying, it is not 1857. Greenland is not Hawaii. Give me a fucking break. The days of American territorial expansion through military conquest are over. They've been over for 127 years. Enough is enough. Oh, I didn't hear about that, Fitz. More helicopters on the Black Sea. That would be great, dude, because I'll tell you, right now the official number of lost helicopters is 331 in almost 3 years, right? That is 2 helicopters less than all the helicopters they lost in Afghanistan in 9 years when they were the Soviet Union. So we just need 2 more helicopters taken out to tie the Soviets. It'd be a nice number, too, if they could take them out before February 22nd, or 24th, rather, because then that would be 111 helicopters. It's a nice, right, 111, 111, 111. Trump likes Putin. Yes, he does. F and L, that's funny. Pravit, Jackie. Yeah, no, Rydell, I'm not saying that Greenland is not of a strategic importance. It most assuredly is. That's where all our early warning detection is, right? A missile silo in Siberia can't open its door without us knowing because of the guys in Greenland. So, no, it's important. I'm not suggesting it's not. It's got trillions in natural resources. I get it. It's not how we do things. It's not how we do things. No, the security is not all closed in Greenland. Not at all. Not at all. We have very important military base there. I mean, I want to say 60 guys. Do we have 60 guys there? Or 600? I'm not sure. Can somebody look that up? No, Russia doesn't buy European oil. Europe used to buy, and still does buy to a certain extent, Russian oil. Russia's not running out of oil anytime soon. They have some of the largest proven reserves in the world. Common sense says he's pretty sure it's 600. Mel, of course they're going to move away from us. Look at what we're doing. Look at the bullshit we're saying. It's making me crazy. all of the good that America has done in the world, and this is what we've come to. It's a sin. And I know we've done some bad too, but on the whole, America's been good for the world. He was hurting the good people of America. Was McKinley doing that? Yeah. Is it 200, Casey? Is it just 200 stationed in Alaska? Could be. Or I'm sorry, stationed in Greenland, rather. I'm sorry. Are there any plans to rename New Mexico? I don't know. I don't know, man. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Rydell, we'll see. Honestly, I don't care if anybody likes us. I don't care if anybody likes me. What I care about is how I behave in the world. That's my yardstick. I do not give a fuck about what other people think of me. I care about how I treat other people. Yes, I do. Imperialism is Putin's play, Bobby. Thanks, Casey. So I apologize. I was mistaken. It's just 200. We have 200 Americans, service personnel stationed in Greenland, according to Casey's Google just now. And I don't think Casey has any reason to lie to us. That's such a weird question, Oil Boss. I'm not even going to answer that. I'm an American. Thanks, Casey. Oh, wait. Did Mel give me a compliment? Because I see Dark Irish saying that it'll go to my head. I'm not going to scroll back. Paul, I wish I knew how the artillery shell situation was. As far as I know, the Czech shell initiative, continues to deliver in excess of 50,000 shells a month. Now, Ukraine fires off 60,000 shells a month. So that's not quite enough, right? But there are other sources of shells coming in. We also recently had word that America was sending several 100,000 shells. So if indeed America is sending several 100,000 shells, then there should be no problem. But Ukraine does continue to fire off about 2,000 shells a day. Oh, Bobby, this is Trump's greatest week of his life. The worst month. He just made $42 billion this week off his presidency. I don't know how we allow it. I don't know how we are allowing it. I don't know when suddenly nobody can tell the president that he can't break the law. What the actual fuck world are we living in? That is the big question, Bobby. Or I'm sorry, Anthony. Anthony says, has Ukraine got the weapons it needs to hold off the Russians without American weapons? We are going to find out, pal. We are going to find out. The big four that Trump is talking about, right, is Canada, Mexico, Greenland, and Panama, as far as I know. Oh, yeah, EU's given much more to Ukraine than the United States at this point. How about barrels? We just got 150 shiny new barrels from Sheffield Forge Masters, which has reopened specifically to make barrels for Ukraine. I shouldn't say that. I don't think Ukraine has a problem with barrels. I'm hoping that they don't. The Russians are having trouble. The Russians can only produce 200 new barrels a year. That's a problem. That's increasingly a problem for the Russians, which is why increasingly we see artillery coming in from North Korea. Those two things are definitely connected. Paul, it's funny you mentioned the Arctic because that's a big play for Putin, the Arctic. And about 6 months ago, I want to say, maybe a little longer, 8 months maybe, we saw the Russians pull all the pansirs, all the, white snow camouflaged Arctic pansir systems down into Russia proper because they didn't have enough pansirs to go around. Now, today, somewhere out in the Tver region of Russia, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been Tula, there was a car accident that involved a flatbed trailer that was carrying the Arctic version of the Magnolia. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Magnolia, big cannon, 122 millimeter cannon, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, a big fucking gun. A big fucking gun that is built very specifically to function in sub-zero weather, to function in the Arctic, to function above 80 degrees latitude. Now, why on earth would you be dragging an Arctic gun down to Russia? I'll tell you why, because you need it on the front line, because you don't have enough. That is clearly what is going on. The oil is where the money is. Hit the oil. I agree. We are all in agreement. And it's right. And just to be clear, right, Ukraine has hit 19 out of 22 oil refineries, 36 oil depots. Right? They're trying. The Russians keep fixing them. The Ukrainians keep blowing them up. Okay. Any clue how many refineries Russia really has compared to being hit? Yeah, there's 22 function. So as I understand it, Fitz, Russia has 44 refineries built, but only 22 of them work. Only 22 of them are working. It's not entirely clear to me why that is. And they're all running at refineries. Some refineries are running at reduced capacity. They aren't all. It's the oil wells that are not running at capacity. They've intentionally reduced production on those wells. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they just couldn't keep it up, right? Like they don't have the manpower. They don't have the expertise to keep the oil flowing out of the ground. That could be why they're producing 875,000 fewer barrels of oil a day. That and the desire to drive up prices, clearly. But it's not entirely clear. The whole price thing might just be a secondary effect of the fact that they lack the expertise and manpower to get the oil out of the ground in the first place. But as I understand it, there are 22 working refineries in Russia. And at this time, 19 of them have been hit at some point or another. Nightshade. They did, Dante is right, they did build them with Western help, with Western aid. ExxonMobil was in there, right? ExxonMobil lost a huge amount of money when they pulled out. But they did the right thing. Eventually, they were all going to be nationalized, just like Danone yogurt and Jarlsberg beer and the Juniper power plants. It's inevitable. Hey, good night, Scott. Spare parts have to be running out. Now, my understanding is that the Chinese are making bespoke parts on behalf of the Russians. So when the Russians need parts, the Chinese manufacture knockoffs. They reverse engineer whatever it is, and they generate some fix, something that'll make a fix. But of course, that's never going to work to the level that the pieces designed for the system will work. There's only so much of that you can do. "3D printing is great. Don't get me wrong. And with 3D printing, you can easily rip off other people's work, right? The problem is it's not just that. 3D printing is no good for metallurgy replacements. You need something that can take 1,000 pounds of pressure, you're not going to 3D print it. That's not a thing. At least I'm not aware of any, not even any of the strongest polycarbonate compounds that can be processed through a 3D printer. As far as I know, none of them can take 1,000 pounds of pressure. Now, I may be wrong. There's new things coming out all the time. But for this kind of heavy industry, you need metallurgy. Now, China's got metallurgy in spades. So they can, craft these parts on a per case basis. However, it is worth pointing out that very often the science behind the engineering requires not only the part to have this shape at the end, but that it needs to be processed, created, designed in a particular fashion to withstand the rigors of its use. Dante, I'm sure that there are lots of parts on a plane that you can 3D print. And then I'm sure that there are some that if you 3D print, the plane will not stay in the air. I have a high degree of confidence in saying that. Is Ukraine, Z going to turn on Putin? Oh, yeah. These guys have no loyalty to each other. Is Ukraine having any problems with the availability of labor? Yes, definitely. Definitely. There is a labor shortage here. Any able-bodied person that left Ukraine and that can return to Ukraine, despite the danger, they really need you here. If anybody listening to this is a Ukrainian in London or Berlin or Paris, Spain, Madrid, wherever, Malta, if you're a Ukrainian who left home because you were afraid of the bombs, I don't blame you. Nobody blames you. But now would be the time to come home, despite the danger. You are definitely needed here. Oh, that's very interesting, Steve. I'm unaware of that. I didn't even know that you could 3D print with ceramic. 3D printed rocket nozzles. Damn, I'm getting old. I'm just behind the times, could be. That could definitely be. Okay. How are we doing on time, kids? We got 5 minutes. Is EU looking for ways to release those 300 billion funds in Russia? No. Wait, you mean to Ukraine? Yes. We almost lost the whole thing today, Bobby. If Viktor Orban had vetoed the extension on the sanctions to Russia, the EU would have had to have given back every dime it has in the bank of Russia's. I think that's 124 billion of the 300 billion, something like that. I thought you were going to bed, Scott. Joe, if they don't come home before the end of this war, no, they'll never be able to come home. Can you imagine you ran away from the war, you come home after the war is over, you go down the local bar to have a drink or out to the local restaurant, and you run into all your friends who stayed. There's still time to come home and have a part of this victory. There is still time to come home. Come home now. And I understand them too, Carpo. I mean, I get it. Believe me, I get it. But I'll tell you, if 20% of America was occupied, I'd be in uniform if they'd have me. I'm not even a Ukrainian. I have no ties to Ukraine. But I have put myself in harm's way here because this is the most important thing happening in the world. And if I can do it, anybody from this country ought to be willing to do it. Mel, that's a great question. As far as I know, Ukraine's intermediate range ballistic missile program had successful tests, and the missile has been put into serial production. But I don't know that Ukraine has any or many of them, nor do I know the rate at which they can be produced. They're coming, I would argue, probably. I'm not going to quite call it a myth like the Oreshnik, but to the best of my knowledge, it is not here yet. Yeah, thanks for making me feel good, Steve, but no, I'm getting old, pal. 300 billion? No effing hell. 300 billion would be 10 times the liquid cash reserves in the Sovereign Wealth Fund right now. The Sovereign Wealth Fund currently has about 34 billion in it. Another 300 billion would be like 10 times the current cash on hand. See, Robert, I keep thinking that. If things get bad in the United States, like I saw some great protests in Dallas about these deportation camps. I can't even believe I'm saying these words, these deportation camps that they are building. It's so disgusting to me. It's such a betrayal of everything that we are as an immigrant nation. It's gross. It's just gross. And his wife's an immigrant. Damn, they broke as fuck. Yeah, they is. Yeah, they is. So yeah, no, Trump is totally out of control. And I don't understand how we can't stop it. I do not understand how we can't stop it. How a convicted felon is in the goddamn Oval Office. Eesh. It might come to that, GS. Okay, guys, it's 1 a.m. here in glorious downtown Kyiv, where the air raid sirens have just sounded. And I'm going to thank again Dark Irish, who is the sponsor of tonight's live, and has been really a stalwart supporter of this channel, for which I am very grateful. Again, guys, if you do not have a Patreon account, you can get a free one. And then you get the news every night here at 5. We do the day's wrap-up. And every morning in your inbox, you get the news we are waking up to. Right, with a free account, or if you can throw me $5 a month, that would be great too. Good night, Carpo. Good night, Rydell. Nah, I know, dude. You don't have any shame. Come on. One of my ex-wife's friends said that to me once at a party. She's like, "You don't have any shame, do you?" I'm like, "No, I don't have any shame. I don't have time for it. Who's got time for shame?" You should be proud of England. I'm proud of England. I don't even like you guys. I don't even think very much of you, honestly, Anthony. Your country, that is. You I like. Hey, Betty Thompson, how you doing? Good night, Arn. Good night, be nice. Good night, Dante. So, ladies and gentlemen, and other non-binary folks, I'm Peter Alexievich. And this has been the Live at 5 from Kyiv. Mattis, if you're still here, watch for this post. I'll post this up on YouTube in about 2 hours or so it takes to render. And in the first 15 minutes, we talk at great length about the Oreshnik. So that'll all be online. Good night, everybody. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Night, Michael.